Entitled parent tried to use me as an example to her children while I was at work trying to teach them about Megalodon from user Sawapi. After that, entitled mom terrorizes me for months from user Body by Art. Thank you so much to our posters for letting us read your stories. And if you would like us to read your stories next, please submit them to the r/Mr. Reddit subreddit. And if you're new, please subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories every single day. Entitled parent tried to use me as an example to her children while I was at work trying to teach them about Megalodon. So I worked at a pretty well-known and popular aquarium over the summer. Usually my job was great, and the kids are always enthusiastic about learning about our cool animals, and the parents are usually just as enthusiastic. We had the occasional rude guest, but my summer there was great until my very last day. We had a stand at one section of the aquarium where we had cool shark teeth, jaws, and a skull to show kids who were interested. We even had a really cool megalodon tooth that was really popular with the guests. Anyway, enter entitled parent and her two daughters. I want to call them Sweet Kid 1 and Sweet Kid 2 because they were genuinely very sweet the whole time and seemed to be getting very embarrassed by their mother. Sweet Kid 1 is the older sister, but they seemed about the same age, maybe 11 to 12. The ages, I think, are pretty important to the story. Now I want to note before I go into it that entitled parent doesn't think she's entitled to any objects or anything in this story. No, instead, she was entitled to wasting my time and tried to make a fool/example out of me to her daughters. So now, onto the story. They walk up to my stand and I greet them and go through my whole script of what each tooth was, where they came from, talked about the jaws, the number of teeth they have, etc. Things were going great until I started telling the kids about the Meg tooth. Sweet Kid 1 was holding it and seemed in awe of its size, and I told her there was no need to worry about seeing it in the oceans, as it is extinct. She then asks me how/when it went extinct, and I told her that, well, we don't know the exact year that it died, but it outlived the meteor that killed the dinosaurs, as it went extinct due to the lack of prey millions of years ago. She and Sweet Kid 1 immediately had a confused look on their face and said, "Meteor? What meteor?" I was a little surprised and said, "You know, the meteor that killed the dinosaurs?" And they both shook their head. I was shocked as I said, these girls were both almost teens and they had never heard of the meteor. I was about to tell them about it when entitled parent jumped in. She immediately announced, "Oh, we never heard of that story before." I asked them what story they had heard instead, and Sweet Kid 1 excitedly said, "The flood." At this point, I was just thinking, oh no, but continued on since part of my job was educating people about our animals and fossils. I told them that the flood they were talking about happened much later than the meteor, and that was the thing that had killed humans. The meteor killed the dinosaurs. They asked how, so I told them it hit the Earth and it caused the entire planet to be covered with ash, volcanoes were erupting, etc., and that it made the planet unlivable for a lot of life on Earth, and things started to die as a result. At this point, entitled parent starts laughing like the whole concept was absurd. She tells me that, no, that is just a theory. So I tell her that actually, we have proof that it happened. There is a thick layer in Earth's crust that has a specific chemical makeup due to the result of the meteor, and that all dinosaur bones we find are in that layer or lower. And she tells me that again, no, that is just a theory. I was pretty taken aback by that comment, seeing as I told her she could literally dig down right now and find the layer I was talking about, and that people have literally seen it with their own eyes. But somehow, it was still theoretical. Whatever, I didn't want to argue with the lady since her kids were right there, and it was clear she was the type of person that couldn't be convinced because they're crazy, but she kept pushing. She said that there is scientific proof that the world is only 3,000 years old, so there couldn't have been a shark alive millions of years ago, despite her daughter literally holding a tooth from one. I told her that actually, no, there's scientific proof that it is millions of years old, and she said, no, that's just a theory. She then told me I should educate myself and read some scientific articles on it. This is where it got even worse. I just said, ma'am, I have read many scientific papers on this topic. I study biology and graduate this year. I've had to read several papers on this exact topic. Entitled Parent: well, clearly you aren't reading real papers. There is proof that the Earth is only 3,000 years old. Plus, no one was alive millions of years ago to prove that it is any older than this. You're looking into the wrong stuff. You should really look into creationism. My blood was pretty much boiling at this point because I had to contain my anger. See, I am considered a cast member where I work, and part of my job is to keep up a chipper attitude and smile a lot. So I was trying to do this while also answering this entitled parent's crazy questions and hopefully getting through to her poor kids. So I literally start explaining carbon dating to her. Me: I have looked into creationism. I am a confirmed Catholic and know all about the flood. You aren't telling me anything new, but that would have happened much later than the meteor. And even as a Catholic, I know that there is hard evidence that the Earth is millions of years old. We know this because we can carbon date the bones we find. Entitled parent starts laughing. That's just a theory. Everything you are saying is just a theory. Me: no, actually, it's not. I know exactly how carbon dating works, as I have had to use it in school. It's essentially a mathematical formula that tells us the age of something because we know how long it takes for carbon to decay. Now, this whole time, Sweet Kid 1 and 2 have been standing there with their heads down, touching all the teeth I had laid out for them. When I said this, Sweet Kid 1 popped her head up and said, "Oh, like they do with trees? How they can count the rings and know how old they are?" I was so relieved when I heard this, because it sounded like the poor girl was listening more to me than she was to entitled parent. So I put on the biggest smile I could and said, "Kind of. It's a bit different, but it's the same concept. Yeah, we can tell how old things are without being there for their whole lives, just like with trees. These animals don't have rings to count though, so we have to test them another way." This girl was smiling and nodding along and looked super excited about the concept of dinosaurs until entitled parent cut in again, telling me how I was wrong and that, once again, everything I was saying was theory. I told her that no, this was not theory. The thing she was thinking of was probably the theory of evolution, which, yes, is still technically a theory, though honestly, anyone with a functioning brain and basic understanding of biology would agree that we definitely evolved into being as a species, but that this was not at all the same thing. She just shook her head and violently started scrolling through her phone to find some of her research she said existed. She then became exasperated and turned to Sweet Kid 2 and said, "What was that man's website again?" And then started talking about their pastor's website, or a website he had stumbled upon or something. I internally groaned at that one. Her proof was some random website on the internet. That was the proof she was arguing against me with. A website that literally anyone can make. Sweet Kid 2 just shrugged and immediately looked back down and continued to feel the teeth I had out. Entitled parent realized she couldn't find her proof and just said, "Well, there's proof of what I am saying, and what you're saying has just been disproved as a theory. So again, you should just look into creationism." I just gave up at that point and nodded and said, "I already have, but okay, have a nice day." As soon as she left, my stand got swarmed by a couple new families ready to see the teeth. She had literally been giving off such an aura that it caused other people to stay away from the stand. It was ridiculous. Thankfully, the next family that came over, the dad had a Jurassic Park shirt on, so that at least gave me some relief. I just really hope that those girls go to college for biology or something, or at least learn about these things in high school. Right now, I just feel so bad for them, and I am so angry at Entitled Parent for keeping something so big from her children. I can't imagine what other things those poor girls have never heard of. And I get that in the US we have religious freedom, but making your kids think so ignorant to huge facts and sheltering them to this point should honestly be viewed as abuse. Next we've got Entitled Mom Terrorizes Me for Months. Previously on How Did My Life Become So Insane? Yes, this is an update. I took my infant daughter out for our weekly coffee date. While there, an entitled mom with her daughter appeared and tried to grab my baby. She left with a broken nose and some criminal charges. I left with BB, my daughter, and a ridiculous lawsuit. Me and my husband go to her criminal court trial, and her husband says some really hateful things to my husband. She is found not guilty on most of her charges and is sentenced to probation and some therapy. The civil case was supposed to be on July 9th, but the case was dropped. I was so happy. After months of this crap, I was ready to put all of this behind me and move on with our lives. I don't know why I was so naive. I should have known that a crazy entitled mom like that would not give up so easily. One evening, on my way back from our mommy and me yoga class, I noticed a woman parked across the street from my house. I thought it was entitled mom, but I brushed it off, thinking that I was paranoid because all of this started after one of our classes. I took BB inside and got her settled. When I looked out of the window, the car was gone. I went about my business until Saturday. The weather on this particular Saturday morning was gorgeous, so I decided to take BB to the park. It was still early, about 9 a.m. That car was parked on my street again, but this time it was empty. We walked to the park and were there for about 30 minutes before I noticed the same car. Again, empty. I know it was the same car because of the hideous seat covers, pink leopard print. I was a little on edge, so I gathered up BB and started to leave. Then I see her. She was about 15 feet away from us, and it was definitely Entitled Mom. Entitled Mom was there, but her daughter was nowhere in sight. I was starting to worry that she had moved onto my street. When I got home, it was empty, which is normal because my husband likes to go to the gym a little later on Saturday. I got BB a snack and called my neighbor/friend. I asked her if she knows if anyone moved onto the street lately. She didn't think anyone did. Neither of us had noticed any sign of a move-in either. Not that we pay especially close attention. I told her about seeing Entitled Mom. We both decided that it was probably a coincidence. We chatted for a little while until it was time for BB's nap. As soon as I finished putting her down and went down the stairs, my husband came in. It calmed my nerves to see him, at least until we had this conversation. Husband: were you expecting someone this morning? Me: no. Why? Husband: I thought I heard someone knocking on the door this morning, but by the time I got downstairs, they were already gone. Right away, I was on edge. I thought about that empty car. Even if it wasn't Entitled Mom, why would someone just knock and leave like that? I told my husband about seeing Entitled Mom and decided that it could be a coincidence, or it might not. So we will keep an eye out and the police on speed dial. Everything was normal for a few days, but then I see the car again. This continued for about a week to 2 weeks. I would see the car, and then it would be back a few days later. It would be at different times and places. I began to feel paranoid, like I was being watched all the time. One day, I tried to confront her, but she drove away. At the 2-week mark, I decided that I had had enough and would go to the police station the next morning, and that is exactly what I did. The police handled everything just like I thought they would. By that, I mean that they treated me like a crazy person and told me that a car being on a public street is not a crime, and since no threats had been made, there was not much that they could or would do. It was a great waste of time for everyone. About 2 days later, I was leaving for work when I noticed that all 4 of my tires had been slashed. The next weekend, I was working in the garden while BB played next to me. I noticed a little blue-green pellet that I immediately recognized. It was rat poison. I was outraged that the city would just throw poison into people's lawns. What if BB had eaten it? I also have a cat who could die if they ate a poisoned rat. Luckily, he's an indoor cat. I was ranting to my neighbor, ready to turn into a Karen myself, when he told me 2 things that turned my stomach and left me gagging. 1. No one else has or has ever found rat poison pellets in their yard. 2. When the city does rat control, they only put poison in the rat burrows. I wouldn't have them just randomly in the yard. I was horrified. My daughter could have eaten one of those. I called the police non-emergency line and told them what was happening. And again, I was dismissed. My daughter could have died, and they acted like no big deal. I was told they would look into it, and that was that. I'm just going to list some of the things that happened over the next few weeks. My garden was torn up by a person who literally just ripped up handfuls of flowers. I saw that car 15 times. Someone set up an automatic wake-up call for my phone at 3 a.m. Once I figured out how to get the auto calls to stop, someone would call me and hang up to 3 times a day. I would block the number and a new number would call. We went away for a few days. While we were gone, I received a photo text from outside of my house with the message, "See you soon." I immediately rushed us home, and when we got there, someone had thrown a rock through my window. This was the last straw for me. I rushed into Mama Bear mode. I took my daughter to my mother's, and my husband went to the store and picked up some security cameras. We called the police, took photos, and looked for our cat. He was hiding under our porch. My husband set up the cameras, and I filed for an emergency protection order. In my state, when you file for one of those, they go into effect immediately, and there is a hearing later to determine if it will be permanent and all that. Things calmed down for a few days, until I brought baby home. I thought maybe the order would keep entitled mom away, because if she broke it, she would violate her parole and spend time in jail. Again, I underestimated crazy. I'm gonna put a trigger warning for the rest of this paragraph because this is so messed up, so just be warned. If you aren't ready, skip to the next paragraph. One evening, I came home from work and picking up baby, and I walked up to the door. On my porch, there is a black, mostly empty garbage bag. BB was still sleeping from the car ride, so I put her inside the house and came back out. I thought it may have been my husband being careless. I thought it could have been trash or dirty gym clothes or something that he was going to donate or whatever. So I looked inside. Before any conscious thought registered, I was gagging from the smell of decomposition. Inside that bag was a dismembered cat. It was warm, possibly from the summer heat. I immediately panicked. I went back inside, crying, calling, and searching for our cat. In my emotional state, I had woken BB, and she was screaming and crying too. Our cat was up in our bedroom, taking a nap, and very much alive. I was so overwhelmed by emotions. I was happy that our cat was okay, but that didn't stop the panic attack that followed. I called my husband, hyperventilating, as our BB continued to cry. I told him to get home, now. Luckily, he was already on his way. My husband called the police on his way home, and they arrived soon after he did. They took photos and watched the security camera footage. The cameras clearly showed entitled mom leaving the bag on my porch. We gave the police the footage and the bag. I took baby to my mom's again. I was going to stay too, but I had to clean up my house. The bag leaked on the porch, and in my panic, I tracked it through the house. Me and husband returned home, cleaned up. I also had to have another meltdown. We stayed at my mom's overnight. In the morning, I had a meeting with the police, so my mom stayed with baby and husband went to work. The police took my statement and let me know that they were already working with the judge and expected to pick up entitled mom by tonight or tomorrow. I was just ready for this all to be over. I felt powerless. While I was in the meeting, my mother texted me to pick up some teething gel for BB and some toys. So I stopped by the house. I grabbed an extra change of clothes for everyone and the stuff for BB. While I'm in BB's room, I look out the window. It faces the backyard. I see entitled mom in our shed, rummaging around. I flew into an immediate rage and was already halfway down the stairs before I stopped myself. I went back into baby's room and called the police. I told them that someone was breaking in. While I was on the phone, entitled mom walked up and tried to open my back door. It was locked, so I don't know what she thought turning the handle would do. I crept downstairs. I went into my kitchen. I looked out the window, and entitled mom was walking towards my back door again. So I moved over and stood against the wall and the back door. I thought she was going to try the door again, but instead, she broke my window. Instinctively, I grabbed the closest thing off the counter. She looked into the door, and I hit her with it. She fell back and her nose was bleeding again. Apparently, I hit her with a dirty baking tray. She got up and I raised the tray again, but she started to run the other way, around to the front of the house. Just as she made it to the front yard, the police were getting out of their cars. I opened the front door, tray in hand, just in time to hear this. Entitled mom. "Thank God you got here in time. Someone broke into my home and attacked me. Get in there and shoot her. There she is now, and she's armed. Shoot her!" When she screamed and pointed at me, the cop immediately pulled his gun at me. I immediately dropped the tray and freezed up. I really thought he was going to shoot me. The cop lowers his gun. Another squad car pulls up, and 2 more officers start getting out of the car. There are a total of 4 cops in my yard, and I'm still frozen. Entitled mom. "What are you doing? Shoot her!" Cop 1. "Ma'am, I need you to calm down." Another cop walks up and goes to grab my arm. I pull away on reflex. Me. "This is my house." Entitled mom. "She's lying. Look at me. She clearly attacked me." Me. "Because you broke into my window and were coming in." "How dare you? I have lived here for years." Me. "You lying jerk." I must have moved towards her because the cop next to me grabs me by my arm. I'll be honest, I wasn't thinking really clear. Me. "Let me go. This is my house." Entitled mom starts crying. "See? She's crazy. Thank God you came when you did." Cop 1. "It's okay, ma'am. Follow me to the squad car so I can take your statement." 2 cops go with her to the car, and 2 stand with me on the porch. I'm shocked and freaking out, but I start to think clearly again. Me. "This is my house." Cop 2. "Okay." "I can prove it." Finally, not being an idiot. "Okay." "My purse is inside by the stairs. My license is in there." Cop 2 nods at Cop 3, and Cop 3 goes inside and comes back out with my purse. She goes through it and pulls out my license. Cop 2 and 3 nod at each other, and Cop 3 walks down into the yard and waves Cop 4 over. They talk for a moment, and Cop 4 goes back over to 1 and entitled mom. 3 returns over to me. Cop 3. "We're sorry, miss. Cop 4 pulled up the police report from yesterday. I'm sorry about the stress. At least she was caught in the act. blah blah blah. While Cop 3 was talking to me, Cop 4 was talking to Entitled Mom. I'm not sure what was said, but Entitled Mom turned even paler than she is and tried to run away. She didn't get far and ended up eating pavement. A few minutes later, I was giving another statement, and Entitled Mom was glaring at me as she was driven away. After I gave my statement and the cops took a few photos, the cops left. I called my husband home again. He stayed and cleaned up and had to board up our window. We stayed at my mom's for another 2 days. We didn't go home until we found out Entitled Mom was denied bail. In the end, she was found to have violated her parole, so she must spend the rest of her sentence in jail. They also added a stalking charge, animal cruelty, and breaking and entering. I expect that she will be in jail for a few years at least. I really hope that this is my last update. I am also really grateful that so many people showed concern after my last post. And shoutouts to our Regenerals of the day, Jesse, KCCat5, and Allison. Become tomorrow's Regenerals by leaving as many Rees as you can in the comments below.